Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faisal and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, India is habitual in using state-sponsored global terrorism as a prime tool of its foreign and internal policies. Modi regime's fascist behavior hurting globally, but its internal dimension is more horrific. It's evident not only in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but also in the Indian states of Punjab, Manipur, Assam, Mizoram, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and others. And that's the prime reason why the separatist movements are getting pace in India. At the state level, India is involved in social exclusion, persecution and mass killings of its own minorities, especially Muslims, Sikhs, Christians and Dalits. While fascist Modi regime, the Bharatiya Janata Party and its parently entity, the Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh, intends to establish Hindu supremacy across India with a genocidal intent through its extremist Hindutva ideology. In October 2024, the US Commission on International Religious Freedom, USCIRF, shown serious concerns on the extremely deteriorating state of religious freedom in India, surge in intolerance, hate speech, violent assaults, and extremism on religious minorities, and recommended to designate India as a country of particular concern. While Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, Hindutva Watch, Indian American Muslim Council reports are showing the same. To discuss this grave situation in the region and at our eastern border within India, we have in our studios Dr. Awais bin Wasi. He is an Indian affairs expert. Most welcome to you, Dr. Awais. Thank you very much for your presence. And with him, Ms. Saira Ijaz. She is the managing editor of the research journal at Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. Most welcome to you, Saira. Thank you very much for your presence. And soon we have a guest at the online as well. When she'll be here, we'll introduce her. My first question is to you, Saira, that what's your thoughts on the continuous Indian policy of using state-sponsored terrorism, in fact, the global terrorism, as a foreign policy tool and now the internal policy tool as well, institutionalizing the discrimination against the religious minorities, particularly with Muslims and other marginalized groups facing increasingly the systematic exclusion from all over the public life, including the housing, education, health, employment, religious sites, justice system, the parliament, and even the right to vote in India. So how do you see this overall situation and where it is going actually?
Actually, so far, due to certain reasons and due to the strategic and economic presence of India at global level, somehow rescued it from international scrutiny that what actually is going on within the India, but particularly with the minorities. But there is a need to look at it from 4 different perspectives. They are not giving, from the legal and institutional discrimination, which is being carried out through different various laws and rules being made, particularly for non-Hindus within the India, which is badly tarnishing the image of democratic image of India. And so far, this RSS-led BJP government is not realizing the fact that in the long term, in fact, I would say that even in the midterm results would be really disastrous for India and for its global image, and also in terms of human rights violations, in terms of economic prosperity, and in terms of its foreign policy. Then we will come to the social and economic marginalization. That's how they have the entire Indian government, BJP government, I would say, is pushing to the minorities, to the wall. and they are being carried out all those measures which are making the already submerged and already marginalized communities socially and economically in all possible ways, which you have mentioned in your question as well. Then comes the communal violence, mob lynching, and my fourth point is religious sites. So these 4 points are those points which the government of India has to pay attention towards it.
But government of India is actually, in fact, itself involved in that.
Yeah,
so, Dr. Awais, how do you see the Modi regime's deliberate polarization of the state laws, beside revoking Article 370 and 35A to convert Kashmir in open genocidal cell and prison, but also introduced the Citizenship Amendment Acts, CAA, particularly against the Muslims, repealed 1995 Waqf Act to end the religious autonomy and inclusion of non-Muslims on Waqf board particularly, imposition of the Uniform Civil Code to entrench personal laws, vague campaigns like Love Jihad to target Muslim marriages, and a platform like Op India to target Indian Muslim journalists. So what kind of measures India is taking, basically trying to target the minorities?
Thank you so much, Faisal Saab, for having me on this show to discuss very important subject, rising terrorism and extremism in India. As you have mentioned, some of the steps India took, or some of the moves on the part of India, that clearly substantiate and vindicate that claim that Hindutva has been employed or has been adopted as an instrument of policy as a state. And this thing, I think that we can, trace back when Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated by Nathuram Godse. That thing was very much there. But after 2014, this has been institutionalized. This has become a policy framework, and we can see a number of things that you have mentioned. The first, we can start from Article 370 without following the legal framework or the protocols of that has been abrogated. And second thing, Citizenship Act. Citizenship Act, all the 6 religious communities, they were immigrants, they were granted citizenship except Muslims. Hindus were given, Christians were given, Parsis were given, Jains were given, all these, communities, but Muslims were excluded. However, the Muslims, they constitute 1.4 million in India. So you can see, and as a result of this, discriminatory law that later on, turned out to be an act, 100 people got killed because of the brutal use of force by Indian authorities. And the third thing is about media. Media is also considered, the pillar of the state in the modern state. So look at the recent report that I came across, just released in 2024, that India has sunk at 159 number out of 180 countries mapped, and this report has been prepared by Reporters Without Borders. And if you see this, and so far, in the year, 19 journalists have been killed. So if you see this track record of media, this track record of India's policies towards the minorities, the repression and the persecution meted out to them, so I think that it clearly suggests that this Hindutva construct or Hindutva, this narrative, it's not a narrative, it has become a policy instrument. And second thing, that the media which is remaining, that has become a Godi media. That has become a mouthpiece of Prime Minister Modi. So I think that keeping in view all, these developments, to say that India is a secular country, India is a democratic country, it raises serious questions about, the credential of India.
Definitely, you are absolutely right on that part. Saira, what's your thought on the militant and extremist Indian entity, Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh? It's pro-India, pro-Hindu extremist political party, Bharatiya Janata Party. Its leaders, particularly like Indian Prime Minister himself, Narendra Modi, Interior or Home Minister Amit Shah, then the Chief Ministers of different states like Uttar Pradesh, Yogi Adityanath, and Mumbai extremist ringleader Dhananjay Desai, then many others calling non-Hindus as a disease. They are making the statements that they must killed, means the Muslims must killed. And residing Muslims in India was the biggest mistake. So how do you see such kind of hatred, hate speech, and total exclusion of the Muslims from Indian society? Is it possible a huge number of population living in India?
I think it's completely against the basic human rights, and international community should take notice of it, and particularly the role of UN comes in here, that these things need to be addressed on immediate basis. And but unfortunately we have seen that UN has been failed itself, like on so many fronts, be it Kashmir, be it Palestine, or be it other conflicts going on in the world. But some, as Dr. Saab also mentioned, that this RSS mindset being institutionalized in 2014, and that's very unfortunate that the sane voices have been making hushed up by this fascist regime. But definitely India will have serious repercussions if this non-human hatred towards minorities will go on.
If this persists, really. So, Dr. Awais, do you agree with the different strategists drawing critical analysis between a window of 2026 and 2028 with having unprecedented geopolitical rifts, change in military strategies and the political dynamics? As with Hasina Wajid's departure, Bangladesh soft front is over. Now, Indo-China tensions rising particularly on Indian Eastern Front. While the seven states dilemma is rapidly getting worse, the separatist movements getting stronger, the placing India at a critical eastern juncture, particularly the northeastern states. We are witnessing Nagaland, Manipur, Assam and all others. So it could bisect the India's chicken's neck or the Siliguri corridor. So from mainland India, so how do you see this, how the strategists have the conclusion on this important, because you know that the India's chicken neck is the critical point?
Exactly. The idea that has been advanced by these strategist thinkers, so it holds water. It seems plausible. The reason is that this chicken neck, this part, that is extremely strategically important because it is the area which connects India with the northeastern states. And on the other hand, if you see India's deteriorating trajectory towards its smaller neighbors, earlier India was having relatively better ties, though India's agenda at that time even was hegemonic, but despite this relatively better ties were there with the Nepal and Sri Lanka and Bhutan and other, including Bangladesh. But now, if you see the trajectory, that is towards the downward trajectory, and we can take each country to discuss as a case study. For example, look at Bhutan and Nepal and Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, there was a dispute that about that island, and that island, there was an agreement between India and Sri Lanka, but now the external minister
India not ready to accept it.
India was not ready. India has some expansionist design, and because of that, this deteriorating ties with the small neighbors. So one thing is that there is a growing influence of China in these small countries. There are a lot of infrastructure projects, airport development in Nepal, in Bhutan, in Sri Lanka. So because of
in Bangladesh as well,
because of the growing influence of China, I think that India's influence will further curtailed, will further come down. And on the other hand, if we see China's influence because of the this SCO and BRICS. So the influence of China, is getting deeper in the region. So keeping in view all these things, so we can say that because of this deep and the profound influence of China in the region, and China's growing as a global power. So this power matrix or the global, this geopolitical landscape that will witness a shift, and that shift might not be in favor to India.
Definitely, your point is very well elaborated. Saira, whether experts' opinion is right that Indian state of Manipur is collapsing. due to 18 months armed conflict between Metis and Kuki tribes since May 2023, turned this into a civil war-like situation. That's the prime reason why the Modi government now sending 5,000 more troops and or the 50 companies to Manipur, which now makes at least 218 companies of the Central Armed Police Force, including the Central Reserves Police Force, the Border Security Force, but intention is to crush Christian Kukis rather than to have peace over there, to wipe out them and giving blind institutional support to the Hindu Metis community. So how do you see this wiping out your own communities, your own minorities from your own country?
Again, it is the continuation of that mindset which the RSS has, that non-Hindus has no place in India and they should leave it, or they must be thrown out of India if they they willingly leave it. Again, it's very sad, and it's a very negative approach, and it's impractical as well. And as I mentioned earlier, that India as a democratic country, secular democratic country, will have serious repercussions if they carry on this line of action in their political arena. Then now comes the Indian government is drawing criticism on not addressing root causes, such as resolving of ethnic tensions between the Christian Kukis and the Hindu majority Hethis, which are not in majority. By the way, Kukis are in majority in that state. And then land disputes. Kukis are concerned or are feeling insecure about their lands and about their socio political security by the hands of the this Hindu community. Then comes the governance issues. So you are right in that way. It's a very serious issue. And I think Indian government is taking it seriously, but again, their bias is quite visible because there is media restrictions on it. So actual reports can't come out that what actually is going on there. So if the government is doing the right thing and it's not biased, then why the Indian government has put on so much media restrictions? Let the international media and the national media go there and report the actual scenes. But since there is clear signs of partiality and to support the Hindu group.
Saira, your point well taken. Dr. Awais, there is another mess going on, particularly in Assam, when we're talking about the spreading anti-Muslim violence campaign, the social, political and the economic deprivation. 32.67% of the Assam's population is actually living in severe poverty, with unemployment and inflation is particularly on rise. The separatist groups are actually organizing once again, and freedom movement is getting space over there. After Hindutva threat to Muslims, while at the same time the Assam's Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma claimed that the changing demography, that is the same thinking which is happening in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Changing the demography of Assam was a matter of life and death.
Exactly, you are right that that has been, this demographic recomposition. This has been a policy of India since the inception of this country. For example, we witnessed the same policy in Jammu. Jammu was a Muslim majority area, and because of the exercise of the same policy, the Muslim majority Jammu turned into unfortunately a Hindu majority province. Same they are doing in Kashmir, though they are not successful so far, but they have been doing it, and the same the replica of that they are trying to do in Assam. But we see here that there is a fierce resistance and opposition from the Assamese, and I don't think that India's stratagems to bring about the demographic change in Assam or to quell the dissenting or the freedom sentiment even in Assam, that is not going to possible.
So, do you think that the Nagaland is facing the same fate, because 88% of the Christians population over there, and that is again, there is a demographic change policy by India, and they are trying hard to do that, but because of the armed movement going on in Nagaland, they are feeling the heat.
Yes, they are, because in Nagaland or the whole northeast, though India apparently talks about that look east policy and apparently try to placate them, try to assuage them with the number of measures, but practically if you see Nagaland or Assam or Mizoram or Manipur, so I think that there is a fierce resistance and the people are not going to bow down and not going to give up whatever India tries to sell over there. So this is not going to work. For example, Manipur that we have been discussing just. So far, since May 2023, 200 people, they have been killed.
Unfortunately.
So if you see,
but independent sources say that it's more than 400.
It's more than 200. So I think that as Saira Sahiba was mentioned, that until and unless India, addresses the root causes of that, these issues are not going to.
Definitely, you are absolutely right. When we are talking about the root causes, basically the roots of terrorism are more entrenched in India rather than to be resolution of that. Saira, what's your thought on India's ongoing threat and hit and kill spree against the Sikh community, not only within Punjab, Indian state of Punjab, but also abroad? While Sikhs' determination for their separate homeland, Khalistan, with slogan either freedom or martyrdom, it's evident in Indian-held Punjab as well, abroad in Canada, in UK, in US, Australia, and just recently in New Zealand. 37,000 of the Sikh community, they have expressed their willingness through their referendum and vote for Khalistan. While next is going to be held in Los Angeles, United States, on March 23rd, 2025. So how do you see this overall paradigm, that how India is actually acting and how about the rights of Sikhs in Punjab and who else are living abroad, they want to shut their voices?
Actually, the problem is the same, because Indian governments over the period of time, and particularly this current regime, and which is rigid in its approach towards non-Hindus, towards minorities, now the things are coming out that they are not only against Muslims, they are against all non-Hindus, be it Sikhs, be it Christians or anyone else. The point is that India is, trying the strategies of labeling all those individuals or groups as extremists, as terrorist groups, whoever raise voice for their basic human rights, basic democratic human right of self-determination, and raising their voice for their own basic rights within that country. So they have adopted that thing, that using anti-terrorist laws against those groups, so-called individuals and groups, so-called terrorists, because they, and in the name of threat to the national security, and which is totally against, facade in a way, because last year's high-profile killing of Sikh separatist leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar
in Canada.
In Canada, and the level that the two countries, their diplomatic relations between India and Canadians have been so strained that they have to shut their embassies in each other's countries. So Indian government needs to address these issues.
So as Saira said, Wasi sir, do you not think that the West has to take some sort of a stern action against Delhi, because it is inevitable after particularly the ample evidences from the Five Eyes, the intelligence network of the 5 countries. And when Canada exposed India's fascist regime, subsequently the BJP, the RSS and the Indian intelligence agency Raw's nexus in their state-sponsored global terrorism, within and on foreign soil, especially when we are talking about the Sikh leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar, the heinous murder in Canada and attempted murder in the US regarding another Sikh leader, Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. So how do you see that, what actually the Five Eyes or the 5 countries and big powers are actually doing?
Yes, I think that this nexus, as you have mentioned in your question, that is very much evident, because RSS has chapters in different parts of the world, including Canada and US, and then under the cover of this diplomatic cover, Raw is perpetuating the activities of sabotage. And the recent example is that, the case of India is quite different in this case, that across the world we see this phenomenon of terrorism and extremism, but non-state actors are doing it.
Definitely.
But India's case is different, that Indian state is involved
Yes.
in, perpetrating these acts of terrorism and
And
extremism,
when
and not with
it is
not
a member of United Nations,
member of United
signatory of the
Nations,
Charter.
exactly, not with the hostile countries, but with the friendly countries.
Definitely.
For example, if you look, the trade ties between India and Canada, so that is 12 billion, trade between Canada is taking place, and 1.3 million Indians, they are living in Canada.
Definitely.
But despite having these advantages India is getting from Canada, but India at the same time is trying to do that sabotage operation with the help of the diplomatic community. When the Canadian government asked for investigation from the diplomats, so India refused to cooperate, right? And then they had to deport all the 6 diplomats. And then another thing that you have also mentioned, that the 5 eyes. It's not only that any state agency or the spy agency is saying, Canadian government is saying, New Zealand, Australia, UK, and US, that is an intelligence network. They all are endorsing, they all are buying that, this investigation that has been conducted by the Canadian authorities. So I think that if it is not curbed, if it is not restricted, India is not restricted, then India will get emboldened. India will get emboldened.
It is rather global. It is getting the universal threat to
universal.
the world, really.
Exactly.
Really don't, definitely. Viewers, we have Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja with us online, and she is representing Executive Director of the Center for International Strategic Studies, Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Most welcome to you, Dr. Saira. Thank you very much for your time. International community actually endorsing that Modi and its BJP party won 2024 election through polarized voters by using anti-Muslim hate speech and malicious propaganda. Indian American Muslim Council 2024 report highlights the violence and persecution faced by the Indian Muslims and Christians, while the Human Rights Watch says that over 110 of the Modi's campaign speeches contained Islamophobic remarks. Hindutva Watch enlists hundreds of rallies were the BJP leaders actually targeting Muslims particularly. Amnesty International condemns the bulldozer justice as violation of the international law. What is your thought on these things, particularly when Indian extremist thinking is now registering at international level?
See, this is really important and significant threat to international peace and security. And if you allow me, it can be called as state-sponsored terrorism, where state institutions of Indian states are directly involved in manufacturing chaos and violence against minorities within India and outside India as well. I'm sure you remember that recently Australian government has issued whole documentary where they allegedly they said that how Raw is interfering in the political affairs of Australia and trying to support those candidates who support Hindutva ideology and who support Hindu radicalism. And there is an other side of it, because of the developed world mostly is a democratic world. Therefore, the governments, in order to keep, snatch, attract Hindu vote bank in their respective countries, they are pushed to tolerate the illegal, illegitimate, violent activities of Indian government and the institutions working under Indian government. So we really need to understand this phenomena as well. And unfortunately, there is no break to that. There is no end to that, because Hindu expatriates are increasing in developed countries, and they are their citizens. Yes, they have made pressure group, And ironically, RAW and Indian government supports them to build those pressure groups more effectively, more efficiently, and more objective oriented. So this is a dilemma, but this dilemma is working in the favor of Indian government or Modi regime. Here it
So,
is pertinent to mention as
Dr.
well.
Asma, how do you perceive the separatist movements and insurgency getting strength in different northeastern states beyond India's chicken neck? So, particularly in Nagaland, due to the extreme poverty, no job, education, health, infrastructure, and it's only because of the 88% of the Christian population living over there, which is Delhi is completely ignored under its anti-minority policy. Therefore, despite of more than 50,000 Indian troops stationed in Nagaland, freedom struggle is at peak, and the Naga National Council is forced to fight for Nagaland's sovereignty and freedom from India. How do you see whole of the northern Indian states, particularly what is happening in Nagaland?
Yeah, it is a very pertinent question. Thanks for asking it. In conflict studies, there is a theory, there is a concept, denial of basic need. And Edward Hazer presented it, and it says that when a specific community, and in most of the cases that is a minority community, they face not being involved in the state affairs, they face or they feel or they perceive themselves as being marginalized in state affairs. They feel that they need they need to protect their interests through violence, because their state and whatever is happening in the chicken neck, in the sister states in India, Assam, Nagaland, Manipur. So all this is a result of the policies based on majoritarianism under Modi, because those policies are made to only to protect the interests of Hindu fanatic majority, not even Dalits and not even secular Hindus. They come under that radius, whose interests are protected by the Indian government. And as we know that there is a so-called democracy in India, although the international organizations have declared India as an electoral autocracy. So because of that electoral system, the people from small states can never become part
your
of
point
bigger
well taken,
power.
Dr. Asma, your point well taken. Dr. Awais, what's your analysis on Indian government, intelligence, military and extremist entities like RSS using their sponsored Hindutva cyber fanatics to have cyber attacks and espionage abroad in other countries against the vital websites, the digital platforms, the data source centers, the monitoring, surveillance and spying, and orchestrating threats to the citizens of the particular concern particularly, which endorsed by the Canadian government just recently in its National Cyber Threat Assessment 2025-26 report, which termed India as a new cyber threat.
Yes, first of all, that when Canada was sharing the credible and irrefutable evidence, India was not cooperating. Now India has been badly exposed by the recent report you have just alluded. It's not only the first act by India. India has a grim history with regard to that. And the EU Disinfo Lab a couple of years back, in which the whole coordinated network of fake NGOs and fake news papers, for example, fake Los Angeles Times, fake Geneva Times, fake such think tanks. So with that, what they were doing is that they were providing fake information against Pakistan, because that was meant to do propaganda against Pakistan.
Definitely.
To the organizations of United Nations, to organizations of European Union in Brussels and Geneva. So this propaganda against Pakistan, that has been continued not for 1 or 2 years, for the 15 long years.
Definitely.
So I think that with this track record, this is quite logical and plausible that India, unfortunately, India should have used these technological prowess for the benefit of humanity. But what India is doing is, India is using this technological prowess to activities of sabotage.
And what about the recommendations of the US Commission on International Religious Freedom about India designating as the country of particular concerns when it comes to the religious freedom in India, the intolerance, the hate speech and all others?
Yes, this report that issued by UNSC IRF. So in that, there are two things in that report which I came across. One is that report mentions a number of laws, for example, anti-cow slaughter laws,
yes,
Citizenship Act law, and some other laws which are meant to repress the minorities, number one. Second thing is, this report also mentions the Hindutva narrative.
Yes.
That, causes widespread violence and that causes, the hate in that society. So these two things are very much important in that report. So I think that because of, and this is also very important to understand that this is not the first report that has been issued.
Obviously, there
Earlier,
are lots
number of reports
already,
that have
but
been.
we have actually run short of time. So, Saira, if you want to add into that.
No, I think much has been discussed about
Okay,
it.
okay.
Thank
So,
you.
Dr. Asma, one last question. That is, a shocking report surfaced that the US-based Hindu American Foundation, as you were rightly mentioning on that these are basically the offshoots of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh or the Bharatiya Janata Party promoting Hindutva nationalism internationally, having direct links with the Indian intelligence and the diplomatic missions, receiving financial and ideological backing, working against the Indian Sikh, Muslim, Christian leaders, Pakistan, and influencing actually the US politicians while always avoiding registration under the Foreign Agents Registration Act FARA, with no transparency and compliance with the US law. How do you analyze it?
It's again, it depicts that the Indian government has failed to respect the sovereignties of other country and the laws of other countries as well, but they are unable to realize that this rogue behavior, where this rogue behavior would take India from here. So we always say that because of Modi's policies, India has entered in the bell, and that situation would not favor them. This is really ironic because what is happening, the violation of FARA and all those rules, because this never happened earlier in developed countries. We used to hear such stories about the underdeveloped countries or the countries from the third world, but this is ironic that how India is disrespecting the sovereignty.
I think we should have.
Policies, designs of India as well.
So, thank you very much, Dr. Asma, for being online and very candid views you have elaborated. Thank you very much, Dr. Wasi, for being here in the studios. Thank you very much, Saira. Viewers, as you have just listened to our panelists, it is important that world should understand, either must understand, that India is continuously using its state-sponsored global terrorism as a tool of its foreign and now as its internal policy. Now, world has to come forward, the international community, the big powers like P5, along with that, the United Nations, they have to take the stern action, the United Nations Security Council particularly, against India, because India is always evading the world and also getting benefits of its economic market. That must have not be a compulsion. So, world community must have to take action against India in that particular matter, and India has to look inward because India is losing its democracy. India is losing its real fabric of secularism. India is actually losing its status as India because on the one way, the BJP or the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, they want it as a Khand Bharat. But on the other hand, India is losing its own states, particularly the sister states or the northeastern states of Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Assam and all others. So the chicken neck is in danger. India must have to think about it because the Bangladesh, the soft Bangladesh, the Hasina's Bangladesh is not there. Now China's influence is growing in Bhutan and Nepal. On the other hand, the three countries are right at the chicken neck, and if anything happens over there, India will lose all its states who are there in northeast. So India has to look inward rather than disturbing the region, spreading the terrorism as its state's policy, or supporting the terrorist entities in the region or globally. This is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.